Hi, I'm Amy and welcome to my channel. I'm a manifestation and relationship mentor, and this channel's all about merging spirituality and psychology so that you can manifest your relationship. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss the topic of forgiveness and why it is important when you're trying to manifest a relationship, particularly if it is with a specific person. So if you like this content, please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video so others have access to it and can apply it to their own lives. So let's dive in. So the subject of forgiveness, often when I bring this up with people, I feel a bit of a resistance towards it from them, and I can really understand why, because when I was on this journey, the idea of forgiving somebody that had really hurt me did not sit well with me at all. And what I often find is people get stuck in these cycles of either the other person's to blame or I'm to blame. And they go through these cycles and never really being able to let go of these patterns that are standing in between them and their manifestation. And when this happens, they're either overcome with feelings of guilt. So they can't forgive themselves. They don't believe that they're deserving of forgiveness. And they use forgiveness practices like Ho'oponopono as another stick to beat themselves with. Like, I can't be forgiven. What I've done is so bad that I cannot forgive myself. Or we go on to the other end of the spectrum of this person is such a horrible person. They've done this, and this to me. And then you're overcome with feelings of resentment. So what do we do when we're stuck in these cycles and stuck in these heavy feelings that we can't seem to shift no matter what? So what I want to first of all remind you of is, if you are not ready to forgive somebody, let that be okay. Let it be okay. This isn't something that you've got to rush. This isn't something that you have to do to get your manifestation. But what we want to understand is that forgiveness is actually working for you. So it isn't that you're sweeping something under the rug. It isn't that you're ignoring something. It isn't that you're bypassing it. What you are simply doing is forgiving the pattern so that you can release these feelings that you're having that you don't want. So let's say, for example, if I use my own life as an example, I had a father who at times would bully me. And this made me feel incredibly guilty because I didn't feel like I, measured up in his eyes. It made me feel unworthy, made me feel like I wasn't deserving of love. And I would feel guilty about most things. So if something went wrong in one of my relationships, I would feel automatically guilty, like I've done something wrong, it's all my fault. And I carried this through all the way to adulthood. And when I started looking into forgiveness and forgiveness practices, I had a really hard time forgiving my dad for this, because at times it really, really did destroy my self-esteem. It really ruined my relationships in adulthood because I just couldn't move past the fact that, the person who was supposed to take care of me treated me so terribly. And I'm not saying by any means that this is my dad as a whole person. It was just a part of him that came out because he too was a very traumatized person. Now, what's important to understand is when you are forgiving somebody, that you are not making what they've done right. That isn't what we're doing here. We're not saying that what that person did was okay. But what we are saying is that I want to forgive so that I can release these patterns, release these beliefs, and release this feeling. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is understand that this is just a part of this person. It isn't who that person is at their core. It is a part of that person, and they are traumatized the same as I'm traumatized. They are living through their trauma the same as I'm living through my trauma. And as I said before, if you are not ready to forgive somebody, be okay with that. Just be okay with that. This isn't something that we want to be forcing. It's not something that we think we have to do so that I can get my manifestation. And it's not something to blame yourself with either. So if you can just reframe how you think about forgiveness and think about it working for you, think about it as something that's benefiting you. It's nothing to do with the other person. It's thinking about, okay, how are these patterns still showing up for me? How are these patterns still a part of my life, and how am I operating from them? So that you're forgiving what happened, you're forgiving the actual patterns, not the person. You're forgiving the patterns that you took on. You're forgiving the patterns that are running your life now so that you can let go of them and think about how you're going to move forward. And what you'll find in this practice is that you will automatically start releasing resentment and you will automatically start releasing guilt. And the reason why you do this is because when you start to understand that everybody's a human being and everybody has an ego, and you can only operate from the level of awareness that you have at the time. And that's the same with everybody. And, you know, in my relationship, I would lay all the blame at his doorstep, all of it. And, you know, I would label him a commitment phobe. I would say, oh my gosh, isn't it awful how he's hurt me? And he had hurt me. He'd done some really, and said some really awful things. But I had to really look at how I was showing up as well and forgive both of them. I forgave him and forgave myself as well, and understood that these are just patterns that I'd picked up, most likely from childhood, that I'd still not healed. And this was why I was showing up in conflict the way I didn't want to show up. I would show up in conflict. I would either freeze or I would fight. And when I say I would fight, I would say whatever it took to get this person away from me. And I didn't like who I was being, but I had to really dig deep into childhood and think, where have I got this from? Why do I feel like I need to defend myself even now when the situation that I'm in is perfectly safe? So I had to really go in and forgive my parents for my upbringing. I had to forgive my dad for how he handled conflict, and really consciously and intentionally decide to forgive those patterns so that I could behave differently, so I would react differently to the same situation if it happened today. So I hope you got a lot from this video, and I hope it's really changed what your perception of forgiveness is, so that moving forward now you understand how forgiveness is actually working for you. And what the benefit of this, the big benefit, is that when you forgive yourself, so if you've got a situation, for example, that you cannot forgive yourself for, you really, really don't like who you were being at the time, when you forgive yourself, the other person will forgive you, because you're just human. We've all got patterns, we've all got an ego, we all operate from it. So just remember that, and remember that whatever you have done, it is very unlikely that whatever you've done is unforgivable. So go into it with a sense of willingness to understand yourself and the other party. And when you do that, you'll start to see the other person for what they are and who they are at the core, and start to see this side of them, this face of them, as just one part of them. It's not them as a whole. Just the same as me acting out in an argument wasn't who I was at my core. It was just a side to me. It was a traumatized part of me that would just come up, would take over, because that is what I'd learned to do, and that is what had protected me in the past. So if you've got any questions, please drop them in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer them, but otherwise I will see you in the next video.